A few weeks ago, Winnipeg's Inuit community had the opportunity to wear their culture on their faces, proudly receiving traditional face tattoos from Kyra. Kyra was invited to Winnipeg by the Manitoba Inuit Association to provide people with their markings of incredible cultural significance to the Inuit. Let's get into it.
I'm Kyra Kilabuk. I live in Iqaluit, and I've been a lifelong resident of there. Currently a nursing student in my third year. I have 3 children, and then my passion is tattooing, specifically traditional Inuit tattoos.
We saw you were coming to Winnipeg through the Manitoba Inuit Association. So why don't you tell us about what you were doing down here and why they reached out to you?
Back in the fall time, the CEO, Nastania Mullen, had reached out to me and said one of his staff had heard about me, and he had this idea that they wanted to start connecting the urban Inuit here with their culture, start some healing, some self-identity, and thought tattooing would be a great way to do this. So he had heard about me and reached out to me and asked if this would be something that I would be interested in. So we worked from there and waited until it was a good time for my end and his end, and it kind of just unraveled from there, and now here we are.
How many people have you been tattooing lately, and what sort of responsive things are you getting from individuals coming in?
When they had first originally made the post on their Facebook site, it filled up for the week's worth of tattooing from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. in about 15-20 minutes. And this included like at least 100 names on the wait list. So the demand is considerably very high. So it was crazy. It's been very mind-blowing, especially to meet all these people that I've been in contact with for a while and to get this going. And then like I said, I'm working from 9 to 7:30. It kind of varies. But I've tattooed so far in the last 5 days, maybe about 25 people. It's about 6-7 people a day.
Wow. And I mean, it's so cool to hear the Inuit community coming out to, because this is, at least just as an outsider kind of seeing these things, it seems that these kind of face tattoos and Inuit tattoos are something that's being reclaimed by the culture, something that's been repressed by colonialism for so long.
I remember when I was younger, I saw my first person ever with a face tattoo, and I kind of understood, like I knew it was traditional Inuit tattoos, but that was the first time I've ever seen somebody, and that was when I was about 13 years old. And ever since then, and I look back now, not even considering all the work I've done and all the markings I've given people, but there is a huge growth in the amount of people who are taking this step forward and reclaiming our culture and this practice. So it's really cool to see that myself, but also to be a part of it and be able to give people their markings.
Well, it's exciting to see so much Indigenous cultures and peoples reclaiming what has been lost, and more people being interested in learning about it, being allies. But of course, there's so much more work that needs to be done. Not to say that like, oh, it's a problem solved. People get to practice their traditional ways again. Yeah, don't worry. It's like, no. This is just the tip of the iceberg of progress that needs to be made.
I agree. It's just the beginning. I think it's a great first start, but there's definitely a lot of work and education that needs to be done too.
Speaking of education, why don't you tell me about the significance of these tattoos and the importance of it within Inuit culture? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the appropriation of a lot of face markings and tattoos by individuals being like, no, this is our thing, without delving into the history of where these actually come from, thinking it's just this trendy thing.
That's an interesting topic, and it's pretty debatable, I feel like, because I know at the same time Like there is a lot of appropriation being done, but there are also different cultures who may have something similar. So things like that are okay. Me personally, I feel like um it is a big issue and more people are like trying to get these tattoos because they look cool, they look pretty, they look nice. I understand that, but it's really something that's a closed practice. And I get people may feel like they are, I want to say, entitled to having this because maybe they learned the language, maybe they grew up with Inuit, maybe they're somewhere in between that like gray area. But this is really a practice I believe that is just for Inuit. Like traditional Inuit tattoos are just for Inuit. There are other ways people can appreciate our culture, even if that's a tattoo, it can be like a symbol or something. But I believe that this issue is getting larger as well, even when um, like the more people are reclaiming our culture, the more people are starting to do that, I find.
It's just one of those things of when something becomes more present, people are like, oh, this is a cool, trendy thing. I'm going to take part of it too. I know a lot of Polynesian and indigenous peoples of New Zealand. I can't remember the name of what it's
Hmm.
called, but they're full face tattoos. You know, there's a lot of people appropriating
Yep.
that too. And it's like, it's finding that balance, right? Of appreciation, not appropriation.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, for so many people who are interested in tattoos and stuff, there's other ways. Like I have tattoos and stuff, and I'm wanting to get more, but you don't have to necessarily go down, one that's significant to a very specific culture of people.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What got you first started in creating these traditional Inuit tattoos? What got you inspired to get your own?
So I'll step back a little bit from when I first started tattooing, and that was about 10 years ago when I was 17 and in high school still. Like I've always been super into art and different kinds of art, so I thought I would try tattooing just for the fun of it. But I've also been very passionate about my culture and my identity and background. The more I tattooed and the older I got, the more I realized like this lack of knowledge and education about traditional Inuit tattoos. And it really got me interested in researching it and learning more about it and wanting to reclaim that for myself and get these markings on myself, but also to keep practicing tattooing. And over time, it just kind of fell hand in hand. Like when I got more comfortable, there I started opening up to more clients, and then it just kind of grew from there.
That's so cool hearing this passion and inspiration that you got. And not only did it change your life, it's changing others' lives, people who are getting inspired by your actions. Hey, coming all the way from Nunavut down here to
Yep.
Manitoba to change people's lives.
It's pretty surreal. This is my first time ever traveling for tattooing, but I've had clients fly to me back in Iqaluit, like even people from Ottawa or different communities, because there really is this gap in traditional tattooists, I should say, especially for traditional Inuit tattoos. So even when I'm back home, it's so crazy that people have to fly somewhere else to receive something so important to them. But being able to fly here and tattoo the urban Inuit who, of course, identify as being Inuk, but maybe never really understood their cultural roots and backgrounds, and being able to help them reconnect and educate and give them their markings has been so incredible.
Well, it's taking those steps and making a change because once one person does it, they start having that conversation with friends and family.
Yeah.
Others are inspired to get their own markings. And
Mhm.
maybe that takes the next step for, as you're mentioning, some people have to fly so far to find a traditional artist. Well, maybe someone's inspired like yourself to pick up the practice. Or
Yeah.
then from it, it's learning more about the culture, history, and maybe even reclaiming the language.
I think it's really somewhat like a domino effect in that way because once you feel empowered, and you go from one stepping stone to the other, it just kind of connects in a way that just feels very wonderful. And with my experience so far this last few days in Winnipeg, I've tattooed a number of younger girls as well, and have been, of course, talking about the importance of it and trying to educate them. And they're like, this is so cool. Like, it makes me want to try and do it and practice. And I really, really encourage that. So I hope there'll be more growth in this for sure, too.
When you're getting the markings or when you're giving someone the markings, are there very specific ways, like different groups or families or stuff that it's designed around? But like, so what is that process when you're giving someone their marking?
It really varies from person to person, but what I've been doing while I've been here, there are different regions in Nunavut where certain designs or symbols or locations of body might have been a bit different or like have different variations from other regions in Nunavut. So just like helping them understand like what differences there are, or they can even choose what resonates with them. We go from there. Like a lot of people I find have been including their family or their stories or their land. So it's been a lot of the process have been like sitting down with them, doing a consultation about what resonates with them, what they want to include, as well as educating. And then we come up with a design on the spot for the most part, and then put it where they want it, and then go from there.
How do you say it in the traditional way? What is the name of these traditional tattoos?
There are two different words for it. Like traditional Inuit tattoos are tunit, but then the ones on their face are called kakinit.
Is there like a translation of to what those would be roughly in, I guess, English? Not
I'm
really.
not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure.
I mean, that's okay. I was just curious whether or not,
That's a good question. I've never considered that myself.
or at least what a rough translation might be. Okay, I mean that's interesting. Hey, more time for you to learn about it to see if there is, or if there, isn't a direct translation or relation at all.
I'll have to ask about that myself, but there are not a lot of people who know about traditional Inuit tattoos, so I hope that question will be answered some point.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out.
hmm
For an Inuit person who is maybe apprehensive about taking those steps, but they're still thinking about it, what sort of advice would you give them in that process?
hmm Like for people who are kind of more hesitant.
Yeah, someone who's like, well, I
Yeah,
want to embrace this, but maybe they're a little bit on the fence about whether to get it or not, or they are
yeah.
interested, but, what sort of advice or things would you give them?
That's a really good point, and I have encountered this almost daily. And I find there are different categories of why people might be hesitant to get this. One, it might be just because it's like their first tattoo, and of course, that's normal. And some people are not sure about it because, like, let's say if they're putting it on their face and they're like, this is a really big commitment, like, people are going to think it's just a design on my face that doesn't really mean anything, or just because it's aesthetically nice looking or whatever. This is where, like, the education piece really comes in to play, is because, like, this is something that was suppressed for so long. This is something that was almost erased a few generations ago, even. So, understanding the importance of reclaiming this will have to resonate with them. Like it has to be important to them, and they have to understand themselves the importance of it and how empowering it is themselves. And I always say, like, if you're having second thoughts, there's always going to be another time. Like, there's no rush. It's better for you to feel 100% confident in this. And it's okay to be anxious or nervous if you're scared of like what other people may think about it, if you're worried about, things like that.
Well,
But
there's still like discrimination is always something
yeah,
out there. And for
oh yeah.
face markings, it does make you more of a visual target.
I experienced that myself a lot. And even though I've had my face markings for a number of years now, it still bothers me in a way. But there are also people who really like are genuinely curious and like so loving about it and will like want to learn and become more educated about it. So even though like a lot of people aren't very supportive of it, there are also this other side of people who are really wonderful in their response. So I like that.
Well, and it's going to take a little bit more time. Like, as we're mentioning before, things are still a little rough in terms of Indigenous communities and societies as a whole's perception towards Indigenous individuals. So it's going to take time. But I'd like to think, future generations are more open, more interested about and accepting of differences in people, whether that is cultural, ethnic, or like sexualities or things like that.
Mhm.
Regardless of it, I think we're moving in the right direction at least.
I think so too. And the funny thing about that too, it really, and for myself personally, like I film quite a bit of this stuff on my TikTok. So of course there's like empowerment and like more common knowledge about this, but it also really weeds out the people who are against it. And even though it's obviously not good to see that, in a way, I like knowing that there's still work to be done.
Through conversations like this and coming down to Winnipeg and giving people their first markings that are those first steps.
I believe so too.
In that process, how do you apply it? Is it because I know there's a lot of different techniques to how people apply tattoos, specifically traditional ones. What is the method that you use?
I actually use the gun. I'm more comfortable with that. When I first learned how, it was a mix of gun and stick and poke. So I know how to do both, but I prefer using the gun, especially for times like this where there's such a high demand and we want to get in as many people as possible considerably. So everybody has an hour and a half booked with me while I'm here, which is really only like 20-30 minutes of consultation and prep, and then like an hour of tattooing. But what I would do like during my appointments here is just like we sit down, talk about what they want, and then place it where they want with a stencil. Some depending on what design, it will be hand drawn and like measured, and like redone if needed, and make sure it's perfect. But because symmetry is very prevalent, I guess, in our designs. So that's kind of what I do, and then just get the tattoo going.
Might as well use whatever technology is available for you, right?
Yeah, there are also like I said, stick and poke, and then this practice I'm not super familiar with, but there's a threading that is done where you use a fine needle with a little bit of thread on the end, and you dip the thread in ink, and you sew it through the very top layer of the skin. And I've never
Whoa.
practiced that myself, but this is also another traditional Inuit way of tattooing.
I think it's just so cool, like how long humanity has been practicing tattooing. Like it's only pretty modern that people have been like,
Mhm.
no tattoos, don't do it. And now we're seeing kind of resurgence, like through varying different cultures, whether that is just for individuals like myself who think they look neat and they want to adorn themselves, or people who like yourself and other Inuit and other indigenous communities who are taking in these different practices because it is or holds cultural significance. It's just fun to express oneself.
Yeah, I believe so too. In a way, too, you're because I know in this day and age, there's a lot of separation between cultures and ethnic backgrounds. And even though this is an identity piece, I really feel it brings us together in a way.
Yeah, yeah, everyone's doing something different, but it's also connected in its own sense because it's an artistic expression in slightly different forms, but it's all individuals being like, hey, I'm passionate about this one thing and I want to express it. And the more people who do that, I think it's just cooler.
Yeah.
So what's kind of next for you after these appointments here in Winnipeg? What is your plans with your craft and I guess just your life looking ahead?
Well, like I mentioned, I'm a nursing student, so that's really my go-to right now. But I really always try to make time for tattooing back home when I can. Like in the summertime, I'll be able to do it full time again. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've also been sharing pictures and videos of the work I've been doing while I've been here, and the response I've been getting back home is inspiring more people to get it done. So they're like, hurry up and come back home so I can get my markings. And like people are messaging me like, oh, can you do something like that on me? I really like that design. Or like asking me to like sit down and meet with them and design something for them. So I know this event has helped a lot in this way to inspire more people, not just back home, but all over, because there's been people from like Edmonton and Saskatchewan and Ottawa and different communities in Nunavut messaging me and being like, I really hope you can fly here next time. Like, if you ever come here, please let me know. So, um, I'm not sure really what the next steps are. I guess go from there. But I know that due to the long wait list here, even they want me to come back. They want me to go to Churchill and tattoo the people there, but there are no solid plans yet for anything.
Well, at the very least, it's exciting to know there's so many potential paths that are open up for the future.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
So, where can people go to find out more about the tattoo work you're doing and find out more about yourself?
I guess the best place would be my TikTok account. It's kind of mixed, but my handle is Arctic Makeup. So I post a bunch of different videos, mostly about like life in Nunavut, grocery prices, stuff like that. But I also do have a bunch of videos about tattooing as well. So that might be the best place.
Yeah, grocery prices is a very relevant conversation right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I know you've had a long day, but thank you again for taking this time to chat with us and talk to us about this incredible practice and the work that you're doing.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm more than happy to have a conversation about it. So thank you.
Hey, have any stories you'd like us to share or communities we should highlight? Leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.